Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here. So have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered why you might have your dad's nose, but you totally share your mom's amazing knack for math? Well, today, we're decoding the silent architects of your unique identity. Those architects are your genes and alleles, and they're quietly, continuously working away inside your cells to build exactly who you are. Here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the basics of inheritance, move into complex genetic patterns, and then tackle mutations and genetic disorders. After that, we'll look at variation and natural selection, and we'll wrap it all up by solving genetic problems. We're going to build this blueprint step by step to help you secure those essential O-level exam marks.
All right, let's kick things off with a simple question. Can you roll your tongue? Or, do you have your dad's eyes? Try to visualize a straight line connecting that visible physical trait right down to a microscopic twisted strand of DNA inside your cells. That invisible connection is exactly what we are decoding today.
Section 1. The Basics of Inheritance, laying the Mendelian Foundation. Let's dive in.
To really speak the language of genetics, we've got to lock down a few key terms. First up is progeny, which is honestly just a fancy scientific word for the offspring of a genetic cross. Next, if you have a purebred individual, like say a pea plant with two identical tall alleles, we call that homozygous, and you'll usually see it represented by two matching uppercase letters like big T, big T. On the flip side, heterozygous means a hybrid mix of alleles, so you'd see a big T mixed with a little t.
Now pay close attention here because this is a super common trap for students. You have got to keep your letters separated from your physical traits. On the left, notice the genotype. That is the hidden underlying genetic code, the actual letters like TT. On the right is the phenotype. That's the physical, observable reality that actually sprouts out of the ground, like a visibly tall pea plant. Genotype is the code, phenotype is what you see.
Section 2. Complex genetic patterns, breaking the simple rules.
So what happens when genes decide to stop playing by those simple, dominant, recessive rules? We get something called codominance. Check out this formula. If we take a round leaf allele, R, and combine it with a long leaf allele, L, we actually get a distinct oval leaf, RL. The crucial thing to remember is that codominance is not just a messy blending of traits, it's a state where both alleles are fully and equally expressed at the exact same time.
And guess what? We aren't always limited to just two genetic options. The ABO blood group system is a perfectly classic example of multiple alleles. In this case, your genetic blueprint actually utilizes three entirely distinct building blocks, and how they interact determines your specific blood type.
Section 3. Mutations and genetic disorders, errors in the blueprint.
Look, even the absolute best blueprints out there occasionally have errors, right? In biology, these are called mutations. Basically, a mutation is a random change in your genetic material that can be passed down or inherited. For instance, a gene mutation can happen when just a single, tiny base in a DNA sequence gets swapped out for another. And just like that, the molecular structure is altered at the microscopic level. It's wild to see how the microcause connects to the macro effect. Over on the left, you can see how a tiny single DNA base swap alters something like melanin or hemoglobin. But on the right, look at the physical reality of that tiny swap. It directly causes conditions like albinism, resulting in pale skin and light eyes, or sickle cell anemia, which literally changes the physical structure of red blood cells into a sickle shape, making them way less efficient at carrying oxygen. Section 4. Variation and natural selection, the engine of evolution.
Now that we know how mutations happen, let's see how they create variation among individuals. On the left side here, we have continuous variation. Think of human height. It exists on this smooth, unbroken gradient because it's influenced by multiple genes plus your environment. Contrast that with the right side, discontinuous variation. Things like your ABO blood groups don't blend on a scale. They fall into distinct, rigid, totally separate boundary markers.
So how does nature actually use all this? Well, natural selection acts directly on these variations. Think of nature as a giant filter that reads this gradient of variation data and continuously selects the specific traits that give an organism the absolute best mathematical chance of surviving and thriving in its environment.
Section 5. Solving genetic problems. Doing the genetic math.
Okay, time to put on our hard hats and actually calculate this blueprint. We are going to cross two hybrid tall pea plants, TT and TT. Watch how we pull the parent big T and little t alleles from the outer axes straight into the center cells. By pulling them together block by block, we instantly reveal the resulting offspring genotypes,
TT, 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 and TT.
And when we map out those results, look at this beautiful 3-to-1 phenotypic ratio. 75%, so 3 out of the 4 offspring, will visually sprout up as tall plants. Meanwhile, that remaining 25% slice represents our one dwarf plant.
Let's level this up with a codominant blood type example. Following the flowchart, step 1 is identifying the parent genotypes. Step 2, we separate their alleles. Now focus on step 3. We literally just combine those separated parent alleles. We take the IA and IB from one parent, mix them with the recessive Is from the other, and boom, we can predict the child's exact possible blood types, either type A or type B.
All right, let's do a quick fire recap of everything we just mapped out. We established that genes and alleles are your silent architects. We scaled up from basic Mendelian single traits to complex codominants. We tracked how microscopic mutations cause macrogenetic disorders. And finally, we saw how variation is literally the engine driving natural selection.
Before we wrap up, I want to drop a huge exam tip for you. If you were taking your O-levels, the absolute best way to avoid calculating errors with these complex patterns is to always draw out your Punnett squares. Taking the time to visualize the cross ensures your predictions are perfectly accurate every single time. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this breakdown made the mechanics of inheritance crystal clear for you. But honestly, looking at everything we've just covered, it leaves you with one final, pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? What other hidden traits in your body, what other secrets are your silent architects building right now, just waiting to be decoded? Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.